Hey, this is Adam Torres, and I'm here to tell you that it has never been easier to start your very own podcast. At Mission Matters, our goal is to amplify stories that matter. That means we want to help you start your podcast because your story matters. We can do this in 3 different ways. 1, join our podcast school and take a free or paid course. 2, visit our resources page where we've already figured out what you need, such as where to host your podcast. Or 3, heck, we can even do everything for you through our podcast agency, including editing for cheaper than you can do in-house. Oh, and no contract, service is month to month. Get started by heading over to missionmatters.com and click on Start a Podcast. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Marketing Podcast, your source for all things marketing. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Megan Cunningham on the line, and she's CEO and founder over at Magnet Media. Megan, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Adam. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, Megan. So I'm excited to get to today's topic. So we're going to talk about strategic communications for brands. But before we do that, let's go a little bit further into what you're doing over at Magnet Media. Tell us a little bit more about your company, please.
Well, Magnet Media actually just celebrated its 20th anniversary. So we've been...
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you so much. We're sort of credited as being one of the OG of brand storytelling. So I wear that badge proudly. And ultimately what we have, sort of pioneered in our 2 decades in business is using data and storytelling to drive measurable business results. So the way we do that is we have a strategic practice, a production arm, and a distribution engine that all is under one roof. So it's a think, make, reach approach. And we were really honored to work with the brands that we do to help tell their story.
That's absolutely amazing, and I like that. Think, make, reach. So, Megan, at the end of this, I'm going to give you the opportunity to leave your website or, wherever you want to send traffic to so that they can connect if they want to learn more. That being said, what are typically the right types of brands and or clients that are a good fit for Magnet Media, just so that the right individuals and organizations connect?
We've always worked with the marketing teams at 2 types of companies, either large enterprises like Chase or Goldman Sachs or Google or Mattel, that are very large companies that have a great legacy but really need, innovation and modernizing of how to tell their story in new ways like podcasting or video. And we've also, the second group is fast-growing startups, so companies like Airbnb, or Carbon or Greenhouse. These are all companies that have obviously secured a lot of venture capital. They're one of the, some of the fastest moving brands in their categories, but they're navigating, a very rapid growth trajectory. And as they do that, they need to think strategically about who their story is designed for and really segment out those audiences. So investors obviously hear a different story than consumers, or if you're an Airbnb host, you may hear a different message than if you're looking to book a rental property. So things like that and thinking about segmentation are increasingly important to all the brands that we service, whether they're large companies or fast-growing startups.
And I think that's a great transition. So let's just go a little bit further into today's topic. So strategic communication for brands. I know this is a big topic to handle in a 10 to 15 minute podcast episode, but a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives listening. I mean, what should people be thinking about when they're thinking about strategic communications for brands?
Yeah, I think what we've witnessed with the role that marketing has played over the last decade is that it's become increasingly strategic. So in the beginning, marketing was much more of a sort of artistic and, it's frankly a nice to have role, right? If you had a brand that you wanted to have beautiful packaging or a nice logo, you really invested in marketing. But generally speaking, it wasn't necessary to have a world-class marketing operations. If you had a great product and you had a good sales team, like distribution, like those things mattered a lot more. Well, what we're finding is fast forward the clock, as digital transformation really took the business world by storm, more and more brands are leaning into marketing and putting the CMO giving them a seat at the table. And largely that's because with digital transformation, marketing has inherited a lot of the data around consumer insights, around audience distribution, and around communications with your customers and the press and all of your constituents, your own community, so that you are building a brand and the brand equity in parallel to the company itself, whether that be a product or service.
That's awesome. And so I know you work, again, with big companies, sometimes small companies, and, maybe funded startups. And so what do you find, and again, this isn't meant to be a loaded question, but I know you've been doing this 20 years. Like, what do you find that brands that, typically hit the mark, and I know this is going to change from company and industry, but I think certain themes and storytelling maybe apply. What do you find that certain brands do that they just do really well? So they're like, man, they hit the mark with this one, that you try to achieve with your clients, of course.
I think that probably the consistent trait in brands that are telling effective stories is that they understand that storytelling is dynamic, and a story that might have worked for them 3, 5, 50 years ago needs to be updated continuously in today's market, because we're all over communicated with, right? We're all sort of have a scarcity of attention, and we're on our phones, and we're getting social media feeds sort of coming at us as like a rapid fire highway, and we're receiving messages from podcasts, through social media channels, through email, through Slack messaging, through mobile messaging, SMS. So there's so many different channels of communications that the consumer really has fatigue sometimes when it comes to these sort of static brands that are just telling the same story again and again. And I think, you need to refresh that story, frankly, if not on a annual basis, and even on a quarterly basis. I really think the cycle with which you're updating your story and thinking about how to tell it in a new way, how to interpret it in a modern way that's consistent with what people are thinking about and writing about and retweeting and sharing today, is more important than ever. And I'll say in 2020, that message is, resoundingly true more than ever before as brands are responding to the largest social movement that the U.S. has ever seen on the heels of a global pandemic. So, being in the culture and being sensitive to what is top of mind for people that they're servicing, I think has never been more urgent or necessary.
Can you talk a little bit about the importance of what the platforms that you're choosing to to communicate your stories and brands on? Because I feel like there's a lot of people are also confused about that, whether it's podcasts, whether it's blog, whether it's there's so many different options, and I feel like maybe some fit better for other brands. I don't know. What's your opinion on that? You've been doing this a lot longer than I have.
Well, you're pretty good, Adam. You know a thing or two about marketing. I think that there's no right answer to the question around platforms, with the exception of the fact that if you haven't tested new platforms, then you're probably missing out on reaching an audience that is eager to hear your story. So our view is, wherever you start, you may have, a world-class video storytelling effort, and so you're going to be on YouTube, and that's great. That's a great place to start. YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. It's going to increase your organic traffic automatically because it's owned by Google, and you'll be able to find customers, and customers will find you really readily if you're publishing new videos to YouTube on a consistent basis in a way that's YouTube friendly. Having said that, what is a missed opportunity for a lot of people that have focused on YouTube is Facebook and Instagram. And if you're already investing in video content, frankly, to not take advantage of the fact that, Facebook's video product is now 3, 4, 5 years old, and Instagram stories are among the most shareable and readily accessible storytelling, sort of ecosystem in the world, that's a missed opportunity. In this environment, I think TikTok is also really taken off like nobody's ever seen a platform take off before on a global scale. And so that's a way in which you could be really a first mover in your category. And again, taking the same expertise that you may have honed on a different platform, starting in one area and then adapting that for a new environment. So I don't think it's like you have to be on like all of the 7, leading platforms. But I do think understanding where your audience is and what priority platform you're really going to own, and then how do you create adjacencies to the other platforms is really the recipe for success.
That's awesome. So, Megan, first off, I can talk to you about this all day long, and I know, but we're about out of time for this episode. So that being said, if somebody is listening to this and they want to connect with you and your team over at Magnet Media, what's the best way for them to reach out and to do that?
Thanks for asking. Yeah, we are on Twitter, I am on LinkedIn, and then you can definitely go and find us at magnetmediafilms.com. You can find any of my team's emails, or if you fill out a form that's on there, someone will get back to you within an hour or so.
Amazing. And first off, again, congrats on the 20 years. That's not a small feat. That's a huge accomplishment. So congrats. I'm sure for obviously your accomplishment and your team's accomplishment and all the great work that I'm sure you've been able to do for all your clients throughout the year. So really, really cool there. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review on the Apple iTunes Store. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Marketing, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments on the video. Love to know what kind of projects and things that you're working on. And Megan, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks so much, Adam. Have a great afternoon.